We're going to call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock, Monday, March the 7th. If everybody please stand for the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance.
Father God, we thank you for this day, God. Thank you for letting us see a day we've never seen before. God, we ask you to continue to bless us and keep us. God, we ask you to please forgive us of our sins. We ask you to bless each and every one of our council persons here. Be with them. Continue to watch over them. Continue to give them the protection they need. Give them the wisdom they need. Help them to have the endurance that they need to go through the things they have to do this job. Thank you, God, for having people who care about our community to give up their time and talents to help us to have a better community. Bless all of our staff, for our community that work on our city. Bless our mayor. Be with him. Continue to keep him protected. Watch over him. As you bless all our first responders. And Father God, bless everyone who's present at this meeting tonight that care enough about their city to whatever the issue may be. They think it's not robbery to come out tonight to represent, to let the city know, let people know their feelings and to work out so our community will be a better community. So be with each one of them. Continue to watch over them. Watch all of the persons who work for our staff and our city. We ask it all in the name of Jesus the Christ. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Council Vice President White. Councilperson Sestavny.
Here.
Councilperson Yon.
Present.
Councilperson Maple.
Here.
Councilperson Gill.
Here.
Council President Owen.
Here.
Councilperson Hawkins.
Here.
Councilperson Webb.
Here.
Councilperson Samuel.
Here.
Let the record reflect all council members are present.
Thank you. Minutes to be approved. We have minutes from a regular council meeting of February the 15th. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion in a second. Anything further? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Workshop minutes also from February 15th. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion in a second. Any further? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And workshop minutes from February the 29th.
Motion to approve.
You're good. Let's keep it moving. Motion and second. Anything further? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Approval of the agenda.
I make a motion to approve that I need to consult with Les. We have had no additional meetings on that ordinance violation, so are you suggesting table that again? So I'll make a motion to approve with tabling the number 1 on old business.
One question. Are we going to appoint the Parks Authority board tonight?
We certainly can.
I don't think those names were put out though, but okay.
Probably need to get that done.
There were several emails that went around. I thought a couple people threw out some names.
Then I would ask that we add that under new business toward the end, if that's what we're going to do.
So we're going to remove number 1 from table number 1 on old business and add number 14 Park Authority appointments under new business.
How will the Park Authority appointments go? Everybody will say if anyone has someone that they'd like to appoint to kind of sing their praises, and then everybody will know everybody that's involved, or are we just going to first one that says tag? How will that function?
We should submit all the names. I agree. Just nominate, and if there's more than 3 nominations, we'll take a vote from there, I guess.
From the emails, I've only seen 3.
As of today.
I don't think, Matt, you put out your name.
He did.
I
You
did.
did? Oh.
Oh, you did?
Josh.
Mm-hmm.
If we're not ready, don't put it on, but we need to move on with our appointments, I know, because the board's meeting.
It needs to happen.
Yeah, that's
We're going to add that to number 14 under new business.
So I amend my motion with the table and then with the addition.
I'll second.
So motion and a second to approve as amended. Anything further? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Claims to be approved.
Sorry about my tardiness. Requesting approval of claims for $786,891.61.
I did go in and went through claims, but I don't think you handed out the new claims list because I found some issues with appropriation numbers.
Right, we're changing the account numbers, but the dollar amounts stay the
So
same.
if I make a motion to approve, it'll be on the new appropriation, not what's in their packet.
Yes,
Motion to approve.
It's the same dollar figure.
yes, same
and
dollar
all same-
figures. Yes,
Just some account numbers were mixed up, is that
yes,
right? And that's been corrected?
yes.
I have a question,
Yes.
because I have the old claim list, and that's
I
what
can get you a new
scanned
one.
in. You got the one for them to
I'll
sign?
I don't have it with
You
me
can have
right now,
mine.
but I can have it.
Is yours the new one?
A new one.
There's a motion and a second. Is there anything further? Mr. Samuel?
I just lost it.
Is there anything from anybody else?
Oh, I remember it.
Yes, Mr. Samuel?
It happens. Are all the claims, are they appropriate claims, and they've turned in all the receipts they were supposed to, like we've asked before?
Yes,
Thank you.
yes.
And
And signatures on all the claims and all that, yep.
anything else? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Report of the clerk.
None at this time?
Unfinished business. West Merkley, 2016 OR 6, ordinance adopting, 2016 OR 11, proposed ordinance to amend animal shelter ordinance, regulation and treatment of keeping domestic animals within the city.
Yes, at the last meeting, you adopted this ordinance on first reading. We still have 2 more readings remaining. I believe there has been some discussions between certain council members with Sarah Green, the Director of Animal Control, and I believe she's here to speak in reference to those requested changes, or if you have any questions for her. I know I was not in those meetings, she was.
So since last time we spoke, we did meet and had come to an agreement on a couple things that I think it was kind of clear I wasn't super happy or comfortable with. On further reflection later, there were a couple things that I just don't feel like should be removed. Was willing to compromise and take the under 20 degrees, take that out. I've spoken with animal control officials in Indianapolis and Philadelphia who have similar things. They keep track of this stuff, so I was going to come back later with some more data on what their policies were with these complaint-driven things at a later time, if taking that out will help us pass the rest of these ordinances.
I want to know the reason why that was taken out. I wasn't at that meeting. Why was the 20 below to protect the animals that are left outside? Why was that taken out? What was your all's objections?
There are other places in the ordinance which allow animal control to remove an animal if it's in danger, immediate danger, being from the cold included.
Okay.
Setting a 20-degree limit on all domestic animals didn't seem to make sense to those of us who sat down. 20 degrees wasn't appropriate, for the dog to be outside, but 21 degrees was. It seemed kind of arbitrary.
Well, and I would like to say as well that that ordinance, that specific part of the ordinance that you're talking about, that is life and imminent danger. If I leave that yard at that moment, that animal will not survive. So that is not going to be if a Chihuahua is shivering and may or may not. I mean, we can't just go take people's animals unless it is dire straits. I mean, we've got to be able to prove that this animal's life was in immediate danger.
There were some other changes that we discussed in the small group, and I'm not sure. We discussed in the small group, and then you and I discussed later because you wanted to see some changes in what we agreed as a small group. Do you want to go over the rest of those?
Mm-hmm. We did discuss, there were certain things brought up about if you hit an animal calling having to call the police, alert the police, give certain information, that I guess felt was overreaching. So I took out, you didn't have to give the license information, not even your name if you don't have to, but you shall report that you have hit a dog or cat, and give the location so that at least we can deal with that. Doesn't mean they have to stop, doesn't mean, we're not asking a lot, just call the police and let them know so they can dispatch animal control.
Right. Part of our conversation, and we did spend over 2 hours going over this, which is, I have some frustration with that. We all agreed on the language, and then we get it back and it's changed. Our language has changed. But a lot of that discussion, or a little number of discussion items dealt with the word shall. And Councilman Maples, being from the law enforcement background, he shared with us that there's only a couple times in state law or something where repeat that, what you said about a shall for an officer.
Shall leaves no officer discretion, in my opinion. If it says you shall impound a dog, there's one article under here where it says, if your dog's loose, it shall be impounded. If you came to impound your dog right after it was loose, according to this ordinance, to me it would read that it has to be impounded. That's how I perceive the word shall. May is an acceptable term, that your dog may be impounded, not shall. But that's just my opinion.
My only concern with that would be is from the standpoint of trying to enforce a resolution or an ordinance that does not have shall is going to be very difficult. Any good lawyer is going to jump on that and basically say, well, his or her client there was no mandate for the client to do that. I guess Scott can weigh in on that, but I guess my thought would be is if you're not going to have a law that says shall, there's really not point of having a law. But it's going to be very difficult to enforce an ordinance that says should or may.
That's something we have to keep in mind, that with all ordinances, they're complaint driven. It's not like, every single, in the purpose of this whole ordinance, because I've been working with Sarah for a long time on this, is to protect these animals that can't protect themselves, basically. And it's in the extreme cases, and a lot of it is for your judgment and for the animal control officer, correct? So, is it like, I guess my question is it like a police officer? Does your animal control officers go out and use the same type of discretion as a police officer? A police officer makes a stop. It's his discretion whether to give a warning or a ticket. Is it your discretion of your animal control officers of how they handle it? Or are they going to go by
Yes.
this?
No, yeah, it is to their discretion. If this is, for instance, we had a dog that came in that's on its 5th time coming in today, so there is some discretion there,
I can tell you right now, you get pulled over by a police officer, and I can read you the ordinance and statute that says you shall not exceed whatever the marked speed limit is. I'm sure there's plenty of times that police officer does not issue the ticket. There is discretion even if it says shall.
But wouldn't it say the officer may issue a ticket, not shall issue a ticket on the executive part of that ordinance?
No, the ordinance says you shall not exceed. So
I understand that.
Yeah.
That's establishing that you shall not exceed, but like dogs found to be running at large, not under restraint or nuisance, shall be taken by the Jeffersonville Animal Control Officer and impounded. The way I would read that is if your dog was loose, this ordinance requires them to take it. It doesn't say they may take it. So if you showed up right after your dog was loose, this ordinance says they shall take it. I'm talking about more of the executive function of the ordinance.
I think even with the word shall, they have a certain degree of discretion. I can tell you right now, Sarah calls me quite often on, what they should and should not do, because they do have a lot of discretion. Just because an animal is in a certain situation or is on loose, it doesn't always mean they take them. So, I just have, from a legal standpoint, I have some real reservations replacing the word shall with should.
So,
in any ordinance or any law?
Mr. Merkley, if your dog gets loose and the animal control officer is coming down the street and sees that your dog is loose and you run out the door and catch him, and the control officer says, Mr. Merkley, keep your dog in the house, giving you a warning. It says, I shall impound the dog, but I'm giving you a warning. Go back in the house. And then 2 hours later, your dog gets out again and bites me. And I come after the city because that animal control officer shall impound the dog.
No, we have,
That
we
ordinance wasn't followed.
we have immunity.
We have immunity. Oh, lucky us. I don't know what that means.
It means that we're the government, we have the right to be wrong.
Oh, yeah, they won't sue us because she didn't follow that ordinance and use their discretion.
So if we don't follow our own rules...
So the great rules is, as a municipal attorney,
But what about the animal control officer? Would they have immunity?
no, they would have immunity. They're acting in their official capacity as, just like you as an officer would be immune. So,
But we do have leash law.
Yes,
Even if dogs are out, they have to be on a leash.
Right.
And I know, your animal control officers have, do you go out looking for dogs running loose? Do you have that time? Do you have that?
We actually have, recently, Ed White has asked his officers to do a patrol a couple times a day if they aren't on calls and to keep busy. But we're not actively looking to ticket people. I mean, we're trying to keep animals safe and make sure they're not running on the street, keep people safe for that matter, not hitting them, making sure there's not nuisances in the community. It's not, rarely does it happen that animal control comes upon a dog running loose and that person shows up in that, rarely. And when that happens, yes, if this is not a habitual thing, if this is, oops, my door got left open, I'm so sorry, usually it's a very cordial interaction, thank you so much, and if we can help them identify how the dog's getting out, they'll go the extra mile and do that. I mean, we've got very friendly animal control officers, but they also have a job to do. So and Nathan, I know that's what you're saying about the frustration with the process is frustrating, but when I'm afterwards talking to the attorney and talking to people that I've talked to in creating these ordinances with the problem, and they don't agree on certain things that I've agreed to in that meeting, maybe not knowing that's not okay, then I have to revisit it. It's not anything personal, or it's not that I was trying to waste your time. It's just...
I didn't take it personally. To me, if we're expected to, it winds up being our ordinance, and there was 4 of us that agreed, yeah, this is what we'll agree to, and then it comes back and we get it in our packet, and it's changed, and nobody has come to share the whys, why did we change it, whatever. It's just frustrating. And if I wouldn't have had my one we went over that I'd marked up in our 2+ hour meeting, I wouldn't even know what was changed. And so, it's just frustrating.
and I think one way to avoid that frustration is, my advice would be that instead of the department head making those changes, that if a council member or council members want something changed in the proposed ordinance, then you make a motion and a second to amend it in a meeting, public meeting.
I had one other thing. We talked about in our little meeting an appeals process for the vicious animal, because as it states here, upon written notification with any Jeffersonville animal control officer or Jeffersonville police officer, they can deem a vicious animal vicious, and I do not see any kind of appeals process in here. I know we discussed that.
We had discussed the board, I discussed that with Les. If they want to get an attorney and go that route, they can. I'm glad you brought that up, because this just happened in Charlestown 3 days ago. A dog got out and literally ripped a Pomeranian in two in front of its 8-year-old owner. These people are moving to Jeffersonville in 30 days, okay? So Charlestown has deemed that dog vicious. It is now at our shelter. Deemed it vicious the next day. So they have to comply with these things. Do you want that dog, while we're appealing and doing all these things, in these people's house that couldn't keep it contained in the first place?
No, not that dog specifically.
Not that dog specifically, but that dog will be here.
As it states in the ordinance, you would have to get at least $100,000 in insurance. And let's say one of our animal control officers or our police officers deem that dog vicious, because they can. with pretty much officer discretion only, and they cannot get the insurance, what happens to the dog?
We would dispose of the dog.
So you would euthanize the dog?
Yes.
And there's not, I just don't feel comfortable with no appeals process established, no due process for, I would understand that they would have to abide by the vicious animal part of this initially, while there was an appeal pending. We're talking about euthanizing dogs with no,
My recommendation would be is we include language that it be appealed to the Board of Public Works and Safety.
That's what the small group discussed an appeals board, and then,
I don't think you need to create another board.
and then after the fact,
I'm
Sarah,
good with
Yeah, I
no
think Board of Public
board.
Works and Safety would be the appropriate board to appeal it to.
well, after the fact, Sarah and I discussed appealing to the BPW, but that's not in here.
We'll
So
amend it. We can amend it.
I was under
I
the
would
impression-
suggest that with it, you include language that within, they have so many days to appeal it. I mean, it seems like 10 days would be inappropriate.
I think the expectation from the group that met for 2+ hours was that the changes that we all discussed and agreed upon would be in here. And then afterwards, Sarah and I spoke and tried to massage a few things that were, she was hesitant about. And one of those was the appeals board, going from a board, which isn't in here, to appealing to the BPW, which isn't in here. So I guess, should we have taken the ordinance and had our attorney change the language how we wanted to, or?
I think it would help either myself or Scott.
I wasn't in any of those meetings, and I didn't prepare this, so this is not on my computer. I can't.
Right.
This is just a PDF format.
Right.
Your office prepared it, so I can't.
I was not at that meeting. I know based on, Sarah was at the meeting, and, it was,
So is it just an oversight that it's not included, or was there a reason why you decided not to?
That one in particular, yes. I mean, we had an informal 5-minute chat after the Board of Public Works Wednesday. So, if that's my mistake, we can put it in there
I just was
for sure.
curious.
I would suggest that you, at least have the dog being housed at the animal shelter during that time, because again, most of the time that when these dogs are deemed vicious, it's because they've gotten out and hurt a person or hurt a dog. And the people weren't responsible enough the first time to stop that happening. So while we're waiting on a 10-day appeal,
I fully support the fact that they would have to adhere to the vicious. I could not vote on this ordinance if there wasn't due process. If, we're talking about protecting animals, but then we're also saying if you don't comply within 14 days, we're going to euthanize an animal too. I just feel like there needs to be...
public safety is also very important in these instances. And I'm the biggest animal lover you'll ever meet, but if someone's in jeopardy from a dangerous animal, then I don't play with that. I mean, that you're talking about your constituents' safety. So I think that's pretty important. But I do think that language needs to be in there, that if we're going to wait for an appeals board for a certain amount of days, that animal needs to be housed at the animal shelter so that we can keep it contained and that no one else is in danger during that time.
I just said I fully supported that part of it.
I mean, based on this discussion, my recommendation would be that you adopt this on, what was it adopted?
Just the second reading.
Second.
Just on the second reading, and then let my office make some more changes based on what I'm hearing here tonight, at least specifically toward the appeals board. If the council wants to include the should, that's fine. I mean, that's your all's prerogative. I think Scott would agree with me that it's going to make it difficult to enforce at some point, if it's ever challenged.
Motion to pass 2015 OR 11 on the second reading with the thought that it'll come back with changes for the third reading.
Second.
There's a motion and second, further discussion. Just to throw it out there, I mean, the shalls versus the shoulds or the mays was all in with the intent of giving the control officers more discretion. We were afraid that shall would be too restrictive, and we wanted to give them the ability to use their discretion in the field, like you're talking that they do, and I'm sure that they have good discretion, but we didn't want to restrict that by putting something else in. If you're...
I know, but the first thing a good attorney's going to say is that ordinance is vague and overbroad.
And just to
depends where, without seeing where they recommend.
Yeah,
It
yeah, I
depends
mean,
where-
I agree, it is on where it's at, but I mean,
Because I think they're saying the distinction is they're not saying the should or the may is regarding the animal owners themselves. You're saying the actions that may be taken by the
Right.
control officer.
Yeah, the executive.
So there is a little bit of a distinction there that it may work, but I've not seen whatever. change.
yeah, again, I haven't either. I have
But
not
a couple
seen,
of
But it may
things-
work depending upon where the should and the shoulds are.
But a couple of the things were, like with the dog bite and the calling the police if you hit an animal, I mean, those were also things that were discussed that should be should. So it wasn't just,
Yes, like I said, without me seeing it, it's hard for me to give it.
yeah, I do not know what shalls you're wanting to change.
But their request may be reasonable. I'd like to see where they may go. It may still be this legally okay in my opinion, without seeing it.
Call the question?
There were a couple other things that were discussed and changed and then changed again also. So I think we should, at the very least, meet again on this.
Let me say this. Sarah is our animal control officer. To me, to the city, she's the expert. So if she's going to propose an ordinance, and I appreciate you all meeting with her and your suggestions, but here's what she wants passed. And I understand you're going to come back and do it a third time, and you're all free to make changes, but this is what she wants passed. So if you all have something different in mind, I would ask that you all come to the next public meeting and present your ordinance. I'm not going to ask Sarah to go back and change her ordinance that she wants passed. If it doesn't get 5 votes, it doesn't pass. But I'm not going to ask my animal control officer to compromise what she thinks is right or wrong. If you don't vote for it, that's your free will. But I'm not going to ask her to make changes that she doesn't believe in.
Well, Mayor, she did agree to the Board of Public Works appeal the process for that, correct? So that is something that she...
Yeah, I just heard you all say you wanted her to go back and make changes. And I did talk with her after the Board of Public Works. And I understand we're not always going to agree. But if you all want to make changes, you all need to face the audience and make those changes. Please don't ask my animal control officer to go back and make those changes so that you're all comfortable with them. It would be your all's ordinance that you're passing. It would not be her ordinance that you're passing.
Call to question. All those in favor on the second reading, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
thank you.
Motion passes. 8-1. Number 3, Les Merkley, 2016 OR 12.
this was passed on first and second reading at the last meeting. This is a simple amendment to our comp plan. This comes with a favorable recommendation from the Planning Commission. Also, Planning Director Nathan Pruitt is recommending that this be approved as well. It's just amending certain parts of our comp plan. I think we went over that, or Nathan went over that in more detail at the last meeting, if there's any questions.
Motion to pass 2016 OR 15, third and final reading.
Second.
Motion and a second. Anything further? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes.
Say or.
Mr. Merkley again.
Well, it should be,
Oh.
well,
That's it, 15.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Ms. Metcalf. Ordinance transferring certain funds.
This is the same ordinance that was brought to you at the last meeting, so there's been no changes.
Motion to approve with third and final reading.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Anything further? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Ms. Metcalf, again, this is going to be a public hearing,
Yes.
16
This is
OR
also
14.
the same ordinance from the last meeting. Sorry.
This time, we're going to open a public hearing on 2016 OR 14. Is there anybody here to speak for or against the additional appropriation? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve 2016 OR 14 on the second and third and final reading.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve on the final reading. Anything further? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
New business, Mr. Merkley. Resolution regarding the amendment of the Intercity and Falls Landing Economic Development Plans.
You have in front of you two identical resolutions. One resolution concerns the Intercity Road. The other resolution deals with the Falls Landing area. This resolution comes to you from the Redevelopment Commission, also comes from the Planning Commission as well, as required by state statute. We are in a situation with the Redevelopment Commission that the construction, we are ready to go to construction on the 10th Street project, the widening. In fact, we have probably close to 95% of the properties under our control. I should have all the properties under control within the next 60 days. NDOT is telling us that we can be prepared to go for letting after July 1. Even before then, once we have control of the properties, any properties that we do have control of, Redevelopment Commission can go ahead and begin clearing so we can make way for the utility relocation. But to do that, the Redevelopment Commission needs the City Council to adopt these two resolutions to amend the plan to include the construction of 10th Street in these two plans. So, and the mayor's here if you have any questions.
Been a long time. It's been a long time. Hopefully, if you have any questions, you've asked them by now. But big project for future of Jeff. Been anticipated for 20-plus years. Actually came before this board in May of 2012 with this idea. So if there's any questions, please ask. If not, please vote.
Motion to approve 2006 R2.
Second.
Motion and a second. Anything further? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Thank you
Motion
all.
passes. There should be a second.
Motion to approve 2016 R3.
Second.
Motion and second. Anything further? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Oh, number 3, Nathan Samuel, Clark Floyd Tourism Bond.
I'm going to pass the baton to Mr. Jim Keith. We spoke, President Matt Owen and myself met with Mr. Keith. There's some potential funding that can take place. It benefits Jeff and some other communities. It affects tourism. Jim can explain it, but the legislature set up an agreement, or some legislation rather, just for the city of Jeffersonville, if I'm correct, or maybe it's Clark County, but so we're able to request that they do a bond to pay for some projects that benefit tourism. So, and they will pay for the bond. It's not the city, and that's kind of the mechanism or the what's in front of you tonight. But I'll let Jim explain it better than I.
Thank you, Councilman. If it's okay, can I approach the council and pass out? Okay, thank you. I'll do that in a moment. I'm Jim Keith. I'm retired Executive Director of the Convention and Tourism Bureau. This bureau is unique for a couple reasons.
The handout.
Sure, that would be fine. I'm good help here. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Vicki. The local Convention and Tourism Bureau is Clark Floyd County's Convention and Tourism Bureau. It's the only back-county regional convention bureau in the state of Indiana. So we're very unique. We also have very, very unique legislation. In the early 80s, the Tourism Bureau was created or funded, and 25% of the money it collects goes into a special fund called Capital Development Tourism. No, it shouldn't have. Somebody must have got two. Because I had the right number, I thought. And that's my copy. Somebody doesn't have one, because I gave one to We're okay? Okay.
Oh, you actually got one in the beginning of the meeting,
Yeah.
so you might have two.
That's right.
Okay, we okay now? Anyway, 25% of the taxes collected, room taxes from visitors to the community, goes into a special fund that's called Capital Development Tourism Fund. It means just what it says. That money is in a fund to only pay for the capital development of a tourism project that has the potential of bringing additional visitors to the community. The Tourism Bureau cannot buy a brochure with it, can't pay any expenses with it, can't hire any staff with it. It's only to retire a bond. Now, the bond has to be issued by Jeffersonville, New Albany, or Clarksville. Over the years, all the communities have issued the bond. Jeffersonville's issued the bonds before, as Clarksville, New Albany, and so forth. The bonds previously have been used for riverfront development, Big Four Bridge, Howard Steamboat Museum, Falls of the Ohio, the amphitheater in New Albany, etc. So the front page is really what you need to look at today, and that lists what we would like to do with the bond. I have the people, representatives with me, Kurt Peters with the Vintage Fire Museum. Then we have Jeannie Burke, Clark County Museum. David Reinhardt, Howard Steamboat Museum. Jack Bissing is the attorney for the Commission Tourism Bureau, so he can answer any questions that you would have. And I've got Roger Fisher, who's on all the other three boards. So he's pretty busy. The Cultural Arts District is something I think is a source of pride to the community. And this basically puts $1 million or so in further development of the Cultural Arts District, which working together becomes a tourist attraction. So we request that the City Council agree to issue the bond. The Convention and Tourism Bureau pays for the bond, just as Mr. Samuel said, and also pay for all expenses. So the only thing that the city does after the bond is issued is write checks to the various entities. That's it.
I have a question.
Sure, I'll be happy to answer questions.
Well, it actually will be for Mr. Merkley because he's redevelopment attorney. I see on this where it says the Clark County Museum, or not, I'm sorry, the Vintage Fire Museum, they want to do an addition to that building. I'm understanding they lease that building from redevelopment, correct? Is redevelopment okay with this addition? Has this been discussed with redevelopment, or, I mean,
What would be the process if,
I would, yes, I would think so too, because you're adding the rest is enhanced.
Again, I would need to check the lease. I would assume that there is language regarding altering the building, which
There
would
was.
require approval.
That, yeah, that's the only hiccup I could see in all of this, so.
Scott and I have.
I've not seen, the documents. I mean, when you say, I have a lot of questions. When you say the bonds would actually be issued by the city, do you actually mean sponsoring it? Because there's certain type of bond issues where governmental entities are the sponsor. When you say they issue it, so that means they have to go out and
That'll take away
secure the
our
bond
bond
council, financial advisors to go through the markets, or you say they're just sponsoring it as
Just
a
a
pass-through
pass-through.
entity? You understand what I'm trying to say?
You're asking technical questions that I may not qualify. The Tourism Bureau will hire the bond council, and incur all
Bonds are
expenses
actually issued then.
by the,
Tourism board, you're
Or a
saying this is
pass-
no,
sponsoring it.
Yeah.
the bonds are actually issued by the city.
Okay. Are you asking them to take action tonight?
Whoa.
That would be nice when we start the process, because if you've worked at bond council before, you know it takes how many months to go through the process.
I know, but I mean, Les and myself, both, we've not seen any of these documents you passed out. I'd just like to verify what exactly, what type of bond issue this is. I mean, we've not seen any documents, Les or I.
So does
I'm not
this,
disputing what you're saying, but my clients are asking me to verify this. I don't have anything to verify because I don't have what you passed out.
You-
bonding issue
There's nothing in the packet.
creep into our bonding capacity as a city?
That's what I'm worried about.
Because these are technical questions. I mean, we have something called the constitutional statutory debt limit for general obligation bonds. I mean, I don't know what type of bond issue you're talking about, if this is considered general obligation bond or whatnot. I mean, there's certain limits that they have, whether it's a sponsor or issue bonds. I mean, there are technical, you said these are all technical requirements, but these things, we need to determine that before we take some further action.
You would,
Could they vote contingent on legal review?
These are just come through, Les is agreeing with everything I'm saying. He's in the same,
I
we're asking the same question.
Everybody's been handed the document that's going to do $1 million bond and two
This-
attorneys do not have a copy.
And this is the first I've seen it.
I mean, there was nothing in the package to bring you ahead.
It's just handed to me.
That's why I'm asking. I mean, we do this in Board of Public Works, contingent upon legal review.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hesitant for them to approve or issue bonds without.
All right.
Well,
Bring it back, let's bring it back in.
Mr. Scott, actually, we may have the cart in front of the horse, but what you have, the bond council would prepare the resolutions for the bonds being issued. That's a technical thing that you're wanting. I'm not qualified to present that type of request.
no, I don't think it's ready to be approved tonight.
Well, you have to have the request before we can get to that stage.
I think what's most important, at least from my perspective, is that we only have a certain amount of bonding capacity as a city. And if this encroaches upon that, then that's a problem. Because we've got some obligations that are coming up. So that's what we need to figure
I guess
out.
my question is what the council's being asked tonight is just to give their blessing to move forward with this, and you're going to
Yes.
return with a formal
Yes.
resolution?
Yes.
And at that time, they would consider it and could ultimately say no or yes?
Correct.
Is that correct,
Correct.
Jack?
This is correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
let me help.
Correct.
There is only one convention bureau in the state of Indiana that has this 1% money that can be used for this. It came around when the city of Jeffersonville was trying to buy what was called the piggyback yard. There was insufficient funds. So Representative Wathen amended our legislation to give the capacity to participate in a bond someone else issues. It's goofy, but it works. The question is whether it impinges your bonding capacity or not is an open question, okay? I worked with Jim Gutting, Barnes and Thornburg for many years. And here is how it works. A group of people, the city of Jeffersonville, for example, when they bought the river stage, that was paid for by the Convention and Tourism Bureau. And you issued the bond, we paid the bond off. Now, we found that periodically, we've issued bonds since '84 on to Clarksville, New Albany, and Jeff. And we've had problems periodically with all three of the entities not doing what they said they were going to do. And how do you make them be good and really do what they've promised to do? Here's the process we went through the last two times. We used Clarksville as the bonding entity at that time. They issued a bond, and it was for multiple purposes. We did not hand the check to anybody. The clerk treasurer in Clarksville took a dispersal agreement for a draw out of this bonded money. And they brought in receipts. They came in. It was approved by the Convention Bureau and approved by the people that are making the pledge. And they took the draw and pursued their portion of the bond. That was a multiple part. These are small bonds. It would not be reasonable to issue a bond for $200,000. The costs are too high. But if you combine a bunch of them together, then you have the opportunity to do some good in all of the communities. So this has a proposal that would take in, mostly Jeff, but it's got a New Albany factor in there too. And this is a bi-county, so they put their money in this pot as well. When they collect 4% room tax from everybody who stays in a hotel in Clark or Floyd counties, 3% of that money goes for promotions, salaries, paying the light bill, and 1% can only be used to pay back bonds issued for a purpose of capital development for a tourism purpose. That's all they can use it for. Now, it was written in such a way that the Bureau cannot issue the bond itself. It has to come from one of you the City Council, Clarksville Town Board, New Albany City Council. And then, but we have to work together. It has to start with one of the entities. They make a proposal. Jim has helped you get a proposal together to solicit back to the Bureau. The Bureau then receives this, reacts to it, and says yay or nay. You then come back and we go through the bonding pro forma. We've been using a guy named Jim Gutting in Indianapolis as the bond counsel. And he's originally from Charlestown, I think. And we've done many times. We do the withdrawal. Once it's approved, the bond is issued, and you'll never know it. I don't know that $1 million makes a lot of capacity difference to, the city of Jeffersonville. But
After the meeting, we just came out of everything.
yeah.
If you look on the back page of the first page of the back page and gives you a request timeline, we're going to get a chance to, it's going to take some time before it comes back to us for final approval.
Right.
For actually issuing the bond. So, at this point, they're just looking for some sponsorship and some buy-in from the council that they support this process moving forward, which I absolutely do. I think it's a great project.
I don't think it comes back to us, though. Those are meetings.
It will be
They
back.
won't be able to issue the
It
bonds
comes
without
back.
it coming back to us.
Which meeting? Because these meetings here are our meetings. On your timeline, which meetings are.
Well, you have to enact an ordinance, an actual ordinance. You make first as a request.
What I would recommend, if the council so chooses, if they want to move forward with this concept,
As a sponsorship.
is that your motion for approval of the sponsorship request.
Yeah, because I think that's the correct terminology, because they're technically sponsoring the issuance of the bond. They're not actually going to be the bond holder.
That's the way I understood it, is
That's what I
that
asked.
they would,
I've seen these before. There's certain entities that can't necessarily do bonds on their own. They
Right.
can with a sponsorship of an
The
approved
tour-
governmental entity. So I just want to be clear how we're going forward, where it's not going to get you all the time. I think you can do the motion to move forward for the sponsorship
the
of their bonds.
But I still, go ahead, sorry.
the Bureau gets their income from a hotel tax.
Right.
The bond would be levied against the hotel tax.
Correct.
They're just not allowed to issue their own bonds without permission or a request
It's called, technically
from-
statute calls it sponsorship.
from a municipality.
But we're not actually issuing it in our name.
According to the timeline that you have here, we have another council, oh, no, we don't, never mind. I lied. I think the request is to motion in favor of sponsoring the
I
bond.
think that would help.
And they would move forward with issuing the bond.
For us to approve issuance of our bonds.
No, it would come back to you for approval of an issuance.
That comes later.
But that would not then, it would be levied against their income from their tax, not from our funds, our tax funds.
All the bonds that have been issued are limited to this Capital Development Tourism Fund for funding.
Right.
And if there is a shortfall, then all of the bonds that are outstanding take a pro rata reduction. That is the term of the bond.
It doesn't fall back on the city.
No.
And it does not impact the city's bonding
No,
capacity.
the only people who pay this bond are people who are staying overnight in a hotel room.
Right.
But that comes back to, which now I understand that, and I appreciate that. But we'll still have time with redevelopment in their schedule to get that issue addressed? Okay, that's all I needed.
The other question I had was, and this is for Mr. Merkley again, I think, with the lease, with redevelopment lease with the Clark County Museum. I think there's a piece in there that says that we would reimburse for any capital improvements that they make if they were ever to move because we broke the lease. Would this $300,000 in capital improvements be included in that?
No, you would not have to reimburse them for that.
We would need that in writing.
I was going to say, I need that.
The way the lease is written.
I trust you, Jim. Because the intent was to reimburse for donations that were given to improve the facility. But this isn't technically a private donation. This would be a $300,000 grant, if you will, from tourism.
This is unique. If you understand, there is no duplicate anywhere in Indiana to this particular asset. We don't want to waste it.
Oh, I agree. The projects on this list, I mean, I'm in support of. I just want to make sure legally that we are covered.
I'll make a motion to approve the sponsorship request with the understanding that if it is found out, and we'll ask our council to check on this, if it goes against our bonding capacity, then there's a very strong chance that we as a board would not want to proceed. We want to see other alternatives for that.
Is there a second?
I'll say it.
There's a motion and a second. Anything further? Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We thank you for...
And I would be more than happy to meet with the council or with your council and discuss the technicalities of this anytime you like. Okay.
Drainage and sewer projects for you, too.
Thank you, Mr.
No.
Bisson.
Nobody comes to see a sewer.
Les
don't come with
Merkley,
that one.
a resolution recommending the common council application for tax abatement. So a resolution 4.
This is a resolution that comes to you upon a favorable recommendation from the Redevelopment Commission for an abatement for property located at 4500 Town Center Boulevard, which is right off Veterans Parkway. The applicant is Cutter 5-Star Properties, Indiana, LLC. I believe the council is familiar with the project. They are to build a 34,400 square foot, 2-story steel masonry building, office building at that location. I think John Walling from Cutter Properties is here to answer any questions you might have. The total employees that they would be bringing would be 41, would be retained with 13 additional employees. $3.7 million in salaries with another $740,000 in new salaries based on the new hirings. So, improvements of real estate of $5.3 million. John?
If you look in the packet that's presented, you'll find a worksheet that's a guidelines for consideration of property tax abatement in the city of Jeffersonville. This is a guideline that the council adopted last year. It does meet the criteria for the abatement that they're requesting.
Thank you, Mr. Merkley, City Council. We do have some information for you tonight that wasn't in your packet concerning the building and the land, exactly what the project will look like upon completion. Can I hand these out? I don't think the overhead's working.
Thank you.
Like Mr. Merkley said, the project is just a little under 35,000 square feet. Assured Partners will occupy the entire second floor. If there's anything I can answer about the building or about the property itself or the development on the north side, I'd be glad to do that. Otherwise, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Todd Stockstill, who's the Chief Operating Officer for Assured Partners. I think it's okay.
Yes, thank you for the consideration. We'd actually be occupying the entire second floor. And if you think about our kind of a picture of how we've grown in the region, we actually have 3 offices in Louisville, Kentucky today and 1 in Southern Indiana. We would be relocating our Southern Indiana office to this facility. That's the 41 people that Les mentioned. And we actually would be moving 13 people that are actually corporate employees from Jefferson County over to this facility. The main purpose for the tax abatement would just be to consider to reinvest that money into the growth of the office and the community.
What kind of business is Assured Partners?
We're in insurance, risk management.
You're pretty modest there. You're the 18th largest, isn't it the 18th largest broker?
Or 13th, yeah.
I'm sorry, 13th largest broker in the United States.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're it's important too to not just return that money in the growth of our company, but obviously, whether it's schools, businesses, municipalities, it's important that we're on this side of the river. So when we look at a location, we kind of just put a pin in the middle of a community and really look at a 50-mile radius, because if you're selling insurance, that's typically how far people drive to make calls. So we know we need to be on both sides of the river, and we're heavy in acquisitions as well as in organic growth. We've got a huge age banding in the industry itself, so we're obviously personally involved with Greater Clark County's College and Career Readiness Program in Floyd County, trying to help develop young students through IUS, Purdue, U of L campuses as well. That's where we get a lot of internship programs. And so, we think it'd be a great location for us, and we're wanting to continue to grow in the area.
Where's your current Southern Indiana facility?
It's in Floyd County. It's on Daisy Lane, Green Valley Road and Daisy Lane.
Make a motion to approve 2016 R4.
Second.
Motion and a second. Anything further? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes.
I'm glad you're coming, Jeff.
Hey,
Thank you.
Look forward to it.
Thank you. Les Merkley for a public hearing on ordinance changing the zoning map, tract of property at 629 Michigan Avenue from C2 to DC.
This is rezoning property at 629 Michigan Avenue, property that is owned by the city of Jeffersonville. This comes to you upon a favorable recommendation from the Planning Commission. We are zoning this from C2 large-scale general commercial to downtown commercial, so it's an actual down zoning. It's down near the Gray and Wells building.
Les, is there a specific plan for this that you can disclose, or just...
Just a minute, Nathan, let me... Trying to recall at the Planning Commission meeting. Oh, he's here. Good. Calvary's here.
Hi, Council. This is in regard to the Maker 13 space that was approved through Redevelopment Commission. So this is that facility that opposes the facility that's currently operating as the artist studios, basically.
Is there anything from the Planning Commission members? Is there a motion? Oh, I'm sorry. This time we're going to open a public hearing. Is there anybody here to speak for or against the zoning change? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Now is there a motion?
Motion to approve 2016 OR 15.
Second.
Motion and a second. Anything further? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Merkley for another public hearing. Ordinance changing zoning map, 1742 East 10th Street.
Again, this comes to you upon a favorable recommendation of the Planning Commission to take this property from C1 to C2. It's Huber's Auto Sales, and I believe there is a representative here from Huber's Auto Sales to discuss more specifically the request for rezone.
Hello. Dennis Huber at the Huber's Auto Sales. Got the okay the other week for the zoning change, so asking for the ordinance change from C1 to C2. Any questions?
I think basically, this is, where the Sonic was, because this is in my, that they took down that eyesore, and he's just going to do a parking lot for additional parking, there's not going to be any structures on there.
No,
And
no
I know once
structures.
they took down that Sonic, I got so many yahoos from they thought the city did it, but in fact,
Right.
you
Thank
did
you.
it. So
Thank you.
I appreciate you taking that down for us.
And why does it have to be C2? Is that for auto business, it has to be a C2?
Is that a yes?
I
Yes.
think that was a yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And you will be operating your business out of this additional?
I'm right next to it at 1740, and we just bought the property and tore the building
It's an
down.
expansion of your business.
Yes.
I'm sorry?
It'll be an expansion of your
Yes,
business.
sir. I'm sorry, yes.
At this time, we'll open a public hearing. Is there anybody from the public who would like to speak for or against the proposed change? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
It does not violate the moratorium application.
The application came in prior to the moratorium going into effect, for the record. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve 2016 OR16.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further?
I have a question.
Yes.
I see that under C2, it's a special exception. Do they go to BZA and you have to get approval
Yes,
for
they
that?
did.
Thank you.
Anything further? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, sir. Page 3. Number 7, moving along. Public hearing, changing zoning located at 3032 East 10th Street from C1 to C2.
This is, again, a favorable recommendation from the Planning Commission to zone property located on 10th Street. This is near the Norton's Immediate Care Center and Point Liquors, the space in between there, from C2 to C1 for purposes of a Burger King, and I believe Burger King is here represented by legal counsel Laura Harbison with Pfeiffer and Applegate.
Thank you. I'm really just here to answer any questions that the council may have or address any concerns in your public hearing. The Burger King Corporation has gone through and sought variance for development standards through the BZA, 2 minor development standards, 2 parking spaces over the maximum of 25. They've requested 27, and that has been approved, and as opposed to the gabled roof that's required in the commercial corridor, having the flat roof similar to Walgreens and some of the other retail establishments that have recently developed on 10th Street. Here today, we are looking to rezone the property from C2 to C1, as opposed to the agenda actually says C1 to C2. We're going the opposite direction because to have a drive-through restaurant as is planned, it needs to be C1. So if the council has any questions for me, I'd be happy to attempt to answer.
President. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Mr. Webb?
Do they plan on closing the Burger King on further down 10th Street?
I'm unaware of any plan to close that Burger King. My understanding is that it's an expansion, but I have not had that conversation with them.
Double the wall.
I'm just curious, when this was
We'll
brought
give you
to
2
the
opportunities now.
planning and zoning, would they also bring a site plan for like a dual acceptance, or is it they went for the rezoning first and then they'll bring a plan at a later date?
They have filed their development plan, which has been approved by the Plan Commission, with the variance from the development standards approved by BZA, as well as the petition for rezoning having a favorable approval.
And what variances were there? I'm just curious. Do you know?
Oh, with the development standards?
Just the parking?
The parking and as opposed to the gabled roof having a flat roof. They have made several other adjustments to their original plan to comply with the development standards, including smaller signage and some landscaping issues and whatnot, and those all are in compliance with the development standards at this point.
And so council knows there's also another access,
Myers.
from the Meyer parking lot.
And that question about will the other Burger King close was asked at planning, and the answer was no, it would not.
Burger King town, I guess, right?
Big town.
Burger King town.
Got Jimmy John's, no, we got
Burger King likes Jeff.
At this time, we're going to open a public hearing. If there is anyone here to speak for or against the rezoning, please step forward. Seeing none, we'll also close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve 2016 OR17.
Second.
Motion and a second. Anything further? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kim Calabro. ordinance amending an ordinance fixing the salaries of appointed officers and employees.
Okay, I've got a couple things. As you know, on January 8th, I was requested by President Council Member Owen to provide the council with a list of all of the positions that department heads had requested last, probably August, I guess, during the budget meeting. So we met and went over those, and those have been presented to the council in two separate workshops on February the 1st and February the 24th. So I'm here today to go through those requested changes, and there are a few additionals that were not on that list that are part of the wastewater department. In addition to that, I know at the last two workshops, we discussed proposing a new salary pay grade for civilian personnel and a seasonal pay grade and an entry-level pay grade. So I'm here to seek approval and/or discussion on all of those topics. So I'm not real sure where you want to start. We need to revisit all of this again, or if you just want to go through others.
Right. We've kind of externally talked amongst ourselves about some of the changes, some of the additions that the council's at large is comfortable with, and some that we're not. I guess we can go down the list if you'd like to make, or I don't know what the proper procedure would be, if we should go down the list and
Vote it up or vote it down, and just knock it out?
strike things out.
Because I would have to then adapt to modify the ordinance based upon your all's recommendation for approving a position or denying a position, correct?
Right.
This would be on the first reading. This would be on the first reading.
It is.
Yeah, we could just make our, go down, make our marks and approve it like that.
Right. I think, and all of the additions or changes have been highlighted.
Yes.
So, just going down page 2, the plumbing and HVAC inspector was a part-time position that was being requested. I think there was support for that. There was also support for seeing if that would be a position that could be contracted or hired on a contractual basis.
Larry's here. Larry, do you have an
Yes.
answer? Larry is here. And we have discussed that, so. Okay. Oh, then, I'm sorry.
Is that something that's...
I think that's up to him. I don't know why it wouldn't be, but
Well, it was discussed that this particular type of inspector was required by the city was required to have this type of inspector, and we've not had one since someone had retired.
Steve Harden retired in 13.
Right. So would having a contractual agreement with an inspector fulfill our obligation to have that position, or do we need to actually put someone on the payroll?
We could do it either way, and I've talked to Steve Harden. He's the one that retired. He's wanting to come back as part-time. He said he would do it either way, whatever you all wanted. With just so much an hour, no benefits, no, transportation. I have a truck he could use while he was here. So we come up with like $25 an hour as needed. There may be weeks we don't even need him.
How many inspections on the average a week would we do for this?
Right now it depends, because we've got Veterans Parkway getting ready to open up. We've got all of 10th Street getting ready to open up, and River Ridge just keeps expanding. So my biggest concern is having a licensed plumber doing the inspections on commercial.
Sure. It seems to me that if we're going to keep this inspector somewhat busy, then we're better to bring him on part-time than to contract him, because the contractor is going to pay more.
Yeah.
So I would support the part-time.
And it would be as needed, as my discretion, when I needed him.
it would probably be week by week too, wouldn't it? We
Yes.
talked about that. So it wouldn't be like a set schedule every week. If there were no inspections, then he wouldn't work in that particular week.
Okay.
But I'm just thinking this spring's coming and we're going to be slammed.
Yeah. So part-time, it sounds like, instead of contractual.
I support that.
The utility billing office clerk was something that Ms. Gill had brought think that was going to be paid 50% from drainage department, 50% from the wastewater department.
That's correct, and then this person will be going after, as you know, the Drainage Board did what was called a white page study that they paid $120,000 for, and they basically indicated there's some that aren't hooked up to the sewer, there's some price variance, so they're going to be bringing in a lot of lost revenue for both sewer and drainage, so I support this position 100% with the money they're just going to be bringing in themselves with addressing this issue.
And there are meeting minutes to reflect that it was approved at both boards.
Right. In the engineering department, there's just a reclassification of 2 employees.
Yes, well, the assistant engineer, for some reason, that's just a typo. We've not had the assistant engineer position. That was an engineering manager that was changed several years ago, so I don't know if somehow that
creeped back into the
auto-corrected.
ordinance.
But the project manager would be a retitle. Currently, that person operates with the title of engineering technician, and there would be a change to project manager.
Okay. I think that had support.
Yes.
As far as...
So that's a
I
thumbs
heard.
up?
Yes.
Is that okay?
In the finance department, Heather had requested a payroll clerk and then also a reclassification from a payroll specialist to payroll manager.
Correct.
Heather, I know that there are several who have asked, what is the proper, or what is commonplace practice? I don't know how to say what I want to say, how to articulate. Is it common for a city our size to have 2 people that work solely on payroll and...
It's always good to have cross-training, so if one person, we have so many different pays, because we get paid weekly, we get paid semi, pension pays, so it's very difficult for the current payroll specialist to take any kind of time off, and usually working a lot at night at home, rather than coming in and working, so it's very difficult for me to take vacation, and the workload with all the different, adding more employees, adding more to the whole thing. Great benefit.
I know there's been some reluctance and hesitation, and if I'm speaking out of turn, somebody please speak up, but there has been some reluctance and hesitation in adding more employees every year, it seems like. And one comment was made, would this be, if we made the change from your payroll specialist to payroll manager, would the payroll clerk addition be something that we could revisit at budget time? I don't know how the council feels about that generally, as a whole.
Well, the manager piece of that is to manage both.
The employee, right.
I think I was under the impression too that this was the Chronos. I thought that was the hugest piece for this request, to be managing the Chronos.
It's not the biggest piece, but it is a portion of that. I would say probably 75% of it would be working more on the payroll side, and then maybe 25% would be
The Chronos payroll side, not the timekeeping side. HR has a function and finance has a function. We're keeping our function.
Would that make it, would you have 8 people in your office then?
And there's nobody in that office that can cross-train to fill in and help out with payroll?
There was also, was there a change in the accountant?
That was an increase in not a change on the salary ordinance.
Okay.
It's within the pay range.
Okay.
It was an increase in pay because of
Your accounts payable,
that she's doing.
your accounts payable clerk was changing pay grades from a 2 to a 3, but it was a $0 change.
Right.
Okay.
I understand the need, but like I said, I'm just concerned with what we just heard before this meeting. And home on the fence.
To me, it seems like a large number for the city, but I don't know, I haven't compared us to other cities to see. It just seems like a big number, but I need to get my arms around it to be comfortable with it.
So we want to leave it for now? Come back?
That's fine, for me.
On a second reading? I'm looking for some direction. Are we comfortable with that? Okay, that's what I'm hearing. Moving down,
What was that decision?
we're leaving it in for this reading. Under Human Resources, we have the Manager of Safety crossed out.
You skipped the fire department. We had an administrative
sorry.
assistant,
I did
one
miss-
part-time.
I did miss the fire department. Sorry, gentlemen, in the back of the room. The administrative assistant, part-time, adding to the fire department, I didn't hear support for. So we're removing that unless somebody feels differently. Okay. Human Resources, you have crossed out the Manager of Safety, and I think the anticipation was later in the ordinance creating another department for the safety director. But unless, again, I'm speaking out of turn, that didn't have support either. So we would need to keep the Manager of Safety under Human Resources.
The question is to, I know I have a lot to do, so it's a long explanation. Okay. Can we just remove that and make it its own direct report to the mayor later on?
The safety? I'm sorry.
Manager of safety?
Uh-huh. What was the question? I'm sorry.
Can we remove it from the, right now, he reports to Kim, the HR director. Could it be its own direct report to the mayor?
That would make him a department.
We could do that.
Okay.
Seems to spend a lot of time with the fire department.
All right.
Oh,
Motor vehicle, is that just a change from part-time laborer to seasonal laborer?
Yes, that was part of the cleanup in our proposed entry-level positions and the seasonal positions.
Right.
So yes,
And then the Parks and Recreation changes are all reflected in
the hour and a half, yeah,
the
council.
workshop that we had last week.
Correct, and the EL we changed to reflect, hopefully, if you pass the proposed ordinance change, or the salary changes, EL is, in essence, entry-level.
Entry-level. Those were all, I think everybody supported that
Yes,
at the
these were all the
workshop.
things we talked about at both workshops.
Planning and zoning, we're going from 2 zoning administrators to a planner 1 and a single zoning administrator.
Correct. And then the planner would go from a pay grade 5 to a pay grade, no, I'm sorry, that would be a pay
From a
grade
4 to a
5
5.
versus the zoning administrator, a pay grade 4.
Right. On page 5, the
That,
Department of, sorry.
Are we, I guess I'm confused, are we voting on these, or are we just, are those okays, are they staying, or are they, we've never done it this way, usually there's a vote, so I'm kind of confused, I apologize.
We're going down the line, and the way I understood it, we were going down the list, and what we weren't crossing out is what we're voting to keep in the ordinance.
Okay, so you said okay to the Parks and Rec planner 1, I was looking down, is that a yes, or is that a?
Yes.
Thank you. Safety's a no.
Page 5, the safety is coming out, Department of Safety.
Wastewater, these were not positions that we talked about at both of our council workshops that I presented at, but these are positions that have been changed through the sewer board, and Director Ashak is here if you need any further clarification. But the administrative assistant 2 has been eliminated. We are reinstating that position and that title. Same person, no new hire. She was hired as executive assistant a year ago. They changed it to an administrative assistant 2, and they're going to reinstate that individual in that position back to an executive assistant. The assistant director of utilities, that position has been eliminated. And then on page 6,
Crossing out the
you said no
Director
to
of
that.
Safety.
Yes.
And then we added back in, like I said, the executive assistant. We'll put back in manager of safety. The part-time, we've
struck because that's going to go in with the seasonal and then the entry level. And then presuming that you stay with what you said on under finance with the payroll and safety or payroll, that is funded 20%
From wastewater.
at wastewater. Yes, correct. So we'd keep that. Sorry, there we go. And then they're going to be adding, like I said earlier with the drainage, they're going to be splitting that utility billing office and drainage clerk. That's going to be a shared position between wastewater and drainage. And we already had a pay grade for that, so that's why we didn't redo that. They're going to be adding a fourth CCTV operator and sewer inspector. And they're going to be decreasing the utility worker from 4 to 3 and adding a pipe layer. And under maintenance, they are going to add an additional utility maintenance technician. And Lynn is here if you...
Is that term, Lynn, safety specialist, is that staying in?
No.
Well, if it's coming out of the other one, it's coming
Going
out.
to come out of here.
I didn't think we addressed that, unless I missed it.
But you said that.
All these changes result in one new employee, and that's the one that's being funded 50/50 by drainage and sewer. So it's just moving people around within classification. We eliminated 2 high-paying positions, creating lower-paying positions to do more work on the field.
Yeah, the lots.
And the sewer board has approved all this at 2 sewer board meetings.
And Lynn, the difference, or the change in responsibilities from administrative assistant 2 to executive assistant, I mean, it goes up a pay grade. There's...
If she was hired in as an administrative assistant, some of her duties and responsibilities were taken away.
Okay.
You're putting them back in,
Put them
so
back
she's
on.
doing the work she was originally hired to do.
She was hired as an executive assistant.
Yes.
Thank you.
So it's not going to mean any raise in pay unless you do something at the last pages.
And then page 9 on are changes that
I
reflect
forgot about all
the
those pages. Yes.
workshop
Yes.
that we had on seasonal employees.
Which will also then be captured in
Yes,
the other 2 documents that I presented at the last council workshop,
which are included.
which should be included, yes.
Make a motion to approve 2016 OR 18 on the first reading.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Anything further? And
It is.
are we,
And, please.
those are included in the ordinance.
Okay.
Mr. Merkley, how do we need to present the changes that we've just made to make sure that they're reflected in the next reading? I've got a copy.
I did.
We've got them marked, so you're going to be able to make those changes for
I made them.
our next meeting. Okay, just making sure. Anything further? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Thank you.
Heather Metcalf, annual report on encumbrances.
So this is what,
This is for you to accept into the record the annual report for 2015. Also included is encumbrances from 2015 to 2016, and the outstanding checks that we can now void that they're 2 years old. 2-year-olds.
What was that amount of those outstanding checks we're voiding?
In the general fund, or it looks like the Civil City bank account is $742.69. In the health insurance fund, it was $3,468.25. In the payroll fund, it was $109 or $109,826.42. And in a grant fund, we had one for $5,250.
I just wanted that for the public. It's hard to read these numbers.
They're little, yeah.
Heather, there's a number of the checks that have not been cashed that that are very common names, that we know who
Yes.
they are.
Yes.
If they saw this list and they came back to you after we voted
We
on
can
this,
reissue,
would
yes.
you reissue? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Will they be notified?
Yes, we'll notify. I did see some, it was one of those quick, you know, you look at too many numbers, you don't really look at the numbers, but there are some on here that we will definitely try and contact you, yes.
You need action on this, or
Just for you all to accept it into the record, yes.
motion to accept the annual report, encumbrances, and 2-year-old checks into the record?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Anything further? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Ms. Metcalf, again, an ordinance of additional appropriation.
This is for your first hearing. I'm going to do yep. The first one is for the Building Authority's Cume Improvement Fund for $70,000 for the renovations that are down on the first floor here at City Hall. And then the second one for $298,700 is for you got an email from Andy Croucher on that one. And we get how much
90%,
percentage?
it's a
90% back?
It's a 90%, and this, we just need this up front, which this is coming from this federal law that we have to do the reflective signage in the city.
And we can adjust our miscellaneous revenue to reflect that revenue coming in, so it doesn't come off of our bottom line.
And the $70,000 for the building improvements are not coming out of the general fund, but rather the building commission's 420.
Yes.
And they've got money there to be appropriated. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to pass 2016 OR 20 on the first and second reading. 19. Oh, I'm
19.
sorry, 19.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Anything further? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Ms. Metcalf?
Next one is for, I separated them between the police and the fire, so you have two separate ordinances on that for the requests that they had at the workshop that you all had 2 meetings ago. All right.
Chief, if you'd like to come up, I think if there's any questions, you're going to be able to answer these a little bit better maybe than Ms. Metcalf. Two groups met on this, and I've talked to a couple others individually. One group had a philosophy on how to approach these additional requests, and then another group, went through and kind of combed through them a little more with some different questions. I know, Chief, specifically, there were questions about the buyback amount. You and I spoke today, and that apparently is an amount that we're going to expend because of some retiring officers and a couple of contractual obligations to pay out overtime that was not overtime, I'm sorry, pay out vacation time.
Leave time, correct, by contractual obligation. Let me point out, first we had a retirement, and that retirement was a payout of approximately $41,000. Following behind that, we had two unexpected departures from the department. At that point in time, those were two additional payouts. Those two payouts totaled approximately $20,000. So just alone, the effects were approximately $60,000, just those two. Then you move towards the contractual obligations of the contract, being the vacation buyback incentive program, and then also the sick pay reimbursement. And that was approximately $68,000.
So the point being the $90,000 that was already appropriated for the buyback program in the budget was not going to cover those expenses, and those are obligations that we have to contractually pay out.
So to make those obligations, we did some transferring around. We exceeded those amounts. Also, there's potentially unknown, but there could be other potential expenses that come in line, potentially that buyback as well.
If I could just, sure, if we could just talk for a minute.
Sure.
just to talk about the philosophy that the first group we met talked about, we understand that we're going to be hit up for additional appropriations from probably all departments soon, because they had to cut some of their budgets for our budget, and they plan on coming back. And it's concerning to me that we approve appropriations one at a time as they come, because I know I've talked to the chiefs here. They have specific needs, and I support them. And then we're going to get it again from the fire, and I support probably those. But then we're going to get them from basically other departments. We've already had planning and zoning come, and we appropriated some for them. Based on the meeting we had before this, where we know we're going to be hit with a lot of needs coming up, and even before that, the group that I was participating with talking about, we had the idea or the suggestion that we, as a council, we look and say, this is how much money we feel like we have available to spend, or this is how much we feel like comfortable going in, taking money out of our reserves to meet these needs, and then giving that pot of money to the administration, and I've spoken with Les about this as well, to Les and the mayor, and then they can get with their department heads and find out everybody's need, and then let them prioritize, and let them come back with an appropriation that says, our police need this, our fire need this, our street department needs this, and it falls within that bucket of money that we set aside. My concern is if we don't say we've got this much money, then we're going to wind up spending more than that pot of money that we feel we can spend, or telling a department no when they may need that item. And we talked about that being kind of micromanaging, and we didn't really want to do that. So our thought was to come up with an amount from the general fund and to state that and give direction to the administration on that, and then also give the same, or use Lloyd and say this is how much we feel like we have in Lloyd, and let them distribute that between the two departments based on the need and the priorities of the administration. So that was one of the philosophies, or one of the approaches to this. The second approach is to do it like this, where we're every meeting for the next probably month or two, we're going to be getting different appropriations from different departments. So that's just to explain it to everyone. We didn't all as a council have time to talk about this, and it would have been good probably to be able to do that in a workshop, but my recommendation would be doing the two pots of money, and then getting the appropriation as are the priorities of the administration, and then we vote on that as long as it fits into the pot of money we have. But that's just a recommendation, and I'll vote however we need to vote. But
Well, I have we haven't got circuit breakers back. We don't know how the county mandate's going to affect us. I have no problem giving additional appropriations if they use their budget and they need it. If they still got money in their budget, to me, don't come back and do an additional in March unless it's absolutely necessary. So my question to the chief and the assistant chief is, what on this list is a necessity right now that you don't have this money in your budget to pay this right now, or what, I guess my concern is coming here in the first week of March and we're already going to go into reserves. It's very alarming. It just is. If you've got zero money in your budget that warrants that, okay, you need that $34,000 to pay that now, you need that $5,000 for that ammunition now, then I would have no problem doing it. But if you've got money sitting in your budget, do you understand my
And
concern?
this one pot method that you're speaking of, my understanding, research went back, has not been done here in the prior couple administrations. So you take this one pot method and you apply it and put it in theory, and then we start where, for example, you put $580,000, you put it all in the vehicles. So from that point, and the year prior you put $460,000 in vehicles, but the whole 580 of everything is put in there, and then we have to distribute, such as the first thing off the bat, we're transferring $77,000 because the new officer equipment. Then you take and you start from there, we transfer money because of the Big Four bridge and with the cameras, because those specific lines didn't have it. We start taking care of all the responsibilities of things we know that's happening for the year. So if you want us to go ahead and spin through, we can, but we're already standing there telling you that we're going to have to come back because the shortfall is going to happen.
And Chief, I'm talking about adding money to basically a new pot of money out of Lloyd, for example. But saying this is all we have. You tell us how you want to spend it. It doesn't matter to us, but this is all we have. And I think we want to give you, I want to give you control. It's not that I'm trying to tell you where.
We don't want to micromanage. We want you all to be the department heads, and you all do with that funds, and you got allotted funds, and you do what you all think is appropriate. And that's more or less, we can only take so much out of the budget, so much out of Lloyd.
Right. So
basically, if I understood correctly, workshop, I think I asked a specific question to finance and/or to President Owen, is did we have the funds to cover these requests? And I believe the answer was yes.
And based upon the actuary, was believed to be 2.4, you're actually 2.5, correct?
I'm sorry.
The actuary, you were figuring that you're at 2.4, if I understood that correctly, and actually we came in higher in the reserves. It was speculated to be 2.4, but then it was at 2.5, correct?
Are you talking general or Lloyd?
Lloyd.
Lloyd.
Lloyd, I think was.
I knew we had, I think we budgeted, it was close to 300,000.
Okay.
Where we had 300,000 that we did not budget.
Okay.
And so part of our plan, part of the suggestion was, let's take a good part of that 300,000 and give it to the administration, to the mayor, to you guys, and then you guys say where it goes. And which I think that kind of goes to your point, Dustin. I believe it covers most all this and more, but we want to, I guess, just want to make sure that we kind of send the message. This is what you have. You know total how much you have. Now manage that, and you yourself prioritize as your needs come up. But that's the pool of money that we have. That was the thought.
And I guess what my perception is that these are the things that both departments, just to speak, so we don't have to duplicate ourselves. Both departments feel they need in order to do what they need to do throughout the year in an efficient and safe manner. And they answered all the questions during the workshop, and they are prioritizing, and that's why they've budgeted down. So it's not really that we're micromanaging. They've told us what they want to do and laid it out for us and took the time to explain it to us. So since the money is there in the Lowit and in the general fund, I think it's something that I would encourage everyone to support as it's presented.
To clarify, when we did the budget last year in Lloyd, there was around 300,000 that we didn't budget that we left over, and then in addition to that, our receipts are coming in $256,000 above and beyond that for the year of 2016. So there's about 500,000 there that isn't budgeted, that we could budget, that would not seep into the reserves. We did have to add a little bit for 911 funding, so give or take $450-ish thousand.
If I can.
Yep.
For clarity, and this is a procedural on how we move forward, not just this. This is a question for kind of the competing views that I'm kind of hearing the council have here about going line item, or this Nathan's kind of idea of just giving them a lump sum. It's my understanding that last year, the budget was presented from the various departments, police department included. Council said, you have to make cuts. They said, this is our budget, so the council made cuts. these are the things, many of these items are things that the council, in your view, mistakenly cut. Is that a fair assessment of what happened up to this point?
Absolutely.
Okay. By giving the method of what Nathan is proposing, we eliminate ourselves from being put in this position again, as I see it, because now we're not going to ever come to a position to make a cut. Nor, Dustin, also, if the money's there and we approve it as it stands, but if that's also the case, we won't be able to line item anything. Everything we will be then doing is essentially what I don't like, which is basically an omnibus bill. You know, if you look at it at the federal level, we're just taking on everything or nothing. And that goes also to what we discussed earlier with the way we did the animal ordinance, not to bring up a different subject, but it's kind of an all or nothing approach. And I think this way that Nathan is proposing is a much more, I did not know when I was going to get on the city council that I would be determining if there's another telephone needed in Fire Station 3. You know, that isn't like the way I thought it would work. I thought it would work, here's your budget, you manage it. If you need more money for whatever, we'll give you another bucket. So I'd like for those things to be kind of that view for people kind of mill over before we decide, not just on this, but just moving forward in general, how we're going to deal with all of this.
Councilman Hawkins, so would you be amenable to, let's say, if we added up all that's presented under the general fund and all that's added up out of the Lloyd, however you say it, and basically just have two line items with those amounts in this ordinance?
I think that's more or less what we discussed. It's kind of a total number that we would be happy with moving out of general, adding to general fund or low it.
I think the idea is, and I'll just make up numbers.
Are we going to stick with the number that they've asked for? Is that the question? That's my question.
I have not added all these up, so I don't know.
272.
Okay. If we said as a council that we had, I think Matt just said we had, what, 400,000 or 500,000, I don't know, whatever we can verify that we had that does not go into our reserves for Lloyd, because I think it's very important to have Lloyd reserves for emergency situations, because we've had to use that in the past. Then whatever that amount is, we'll say it's 400,000 just for kicks. Then I would suggest we say to the mayor, we have $400,000 for Lloyd. I don't care how it is spent between police and fire. Get your chiefs together, and you guys go over your priorities and their needs, and then the mayor or Les would present us with, or the chiefs would present us with a new appropriation saying, we're putting this much in fire for equipment for whatever it is, and then as long as it falls within the 400,000 that we said we would allot, then we would vote to approve that. And then they've made the decision on where it goes. It's not us deciding on telephones for Fire Station 3. So that's the thought.
But it would also have to go along with that. We'd have to be willing to, that's it. You know, like that, and that's the key. Like, they're not going to come back with, we need 2,000 more ammunition. You got your bucket of money. That's your bucket of money. And because the fear would be, we're going to buy the things that we want, and I'm not going to do the things we need, and then they would come back, not saying that anybody would ever do this, and come back and say, well, we need to protect our officers, we need a new vest. Well, you should have bought the new vest with the pool of money that we're given. So that was
I'm okay with
almost
both
the
ways. I think the question for me is just, are we going to give them the dollar amount they've asked for? We've already verified that the money's there, so it's not really a question.
Potentially, we could give them more than they asked for, Dustin. Potentially. I haven't added, you just said 278.
272.
It's the same amount as the workshop, right?
I hadn't added up for the fire.
Right. And keep in mind, we showed the numbers for overtime. We did not request any overtime. We put everything out in front of you as how the expenses for the year, and then we wanted to highlight and show, you know, that we'll be coming back to return. It's inevitable in regards to overtime. That's going to happen. So we showed you all the numbers and put everything out. Also, just to touch back and reflect on the lump sum pot, we're still not creating a new budget, we're putting everything back into place of 2015. There's nothing being new created. And in between there, this is where we've identified where we're needing the money for equipment as well.
I mean, either way, we're deciding how much money is going to be put in the bucket. You know, we're going to be talking with department heads about what their needs are, so we have a ballpark of what we're going to be allocating. So I think either approach is similar in that regard, that we will indirectly be making those choices.
If I could just comment,
Yeah.
I agree with that. And Lloyd's is separate from the general fund. And I'll talk general fund for a moment. If we all know that we're more limited in the general fund, and we're going to be limited, I think we have to decide how much we're willing to be able to take from that general fund and free up and say, this is what we have available. What we're not able to do is, what the mayor can do is get everybody in the room or have them all turn in their requests, and then he can decide, I've got this much money, this is how I got to divvy it up. Otherwise, we're going to be hit with the general fund piecemeal all along. And unfortunately, the last two people that are departments that come before us, we may not have money for because we have a limited money for the general fund. And I think by allowing the administration to work with his staff and his own priorities, that lets him get involved and say, this is how we're going to have to manage. That's the only difference is he can pull it all together where we're not pulling it all together. It's going to be piecemealed, and somebody's going to get the short end of the straw, and it's going to be the last 2 or 3 departments that come before us. I'm concerned. I'm afraid.
I just want to touch on one thing. The mayor is involved.
Okay.
And he does have knowledge of what's going on. I do want to reflect on that, but he is involved.
I didn't mean to act like he wasn't. Okay. Sorry.
Chief, don't you make a lot more runs up there in the new section, 6th district, than what you used to? I mean, how many runs are up there? Quite a bit, right? I mean, you're patrolling all that area, right?
The area is increasing with
Definitely.
the flow of traffic is heavily, and it's expected as the runs are increasing each year. The East End District is going to see a run volume flow just like it is in the West.
And what I think we're going to be dealing with a lot more here in the years because all these new businesses, they're in TIF districts. And the general fund, correct me if I'm wrong, the general fund does not get any tax revenue off of those TIF funds, correct?
That's correct.
So the police and fire are getting burdened more and more and more as these businesses are coming in, and the general fund's having to support all these increases for the fire and police, but the general fund is not getting the tax dollars to support you.
That's correct.
And that's where we're running into the problem, because it's
It's increased low at money.
but there is Lowit,
And
but
the general fund did get additional property taxes from that area, from the homes that it...
it's the tax dollar is burdening the existing businesses, the older businesses, and the residential.
There's a point.
And they're having to support the police and fire.
Right.
I mean, how much does Lowit increase? Ed, you got a rough idea?
But also all the homes
But
that are paying property taxes.
yes, but the issue with that is when the annexation took place, our levy was set, and like this is the high water mark that we're able to get off property taxes. We're building a lot more homes, but our levy doesn't get to go up. It just makes it cheaper on everybody below. That's our high water mark. There's been conversation with the administration that we've had to try to go back and raise that a little bit and to make our case that the growth is so strong, we have to be able to support our police and fire, and maybe we can increase that levy where it doesn't affect everybody's tax rate. It doesn't go up. It just allows us to, the taxes don't go down as with all the houses adding on. I may have confused people, and I
But we're
apologize.
still affected by the circuit breaker.
That's our issue, though, is that our levy.
Every year, this is going to get worse and worse and worse and worse.
Councilman Webb, you mentioned about the general fund, and again, I'm being told by administrative assistant and speaking with prior chiefs that there were some areas that we did not have the funding there in Lloyd, and then prior years before it was taken out of the general fund. So doing that research, we were then given the suggestion to make that request in coming out of general fund because those are previously done prior to us. So we did not just, I want you to understand that we came up with this, we went back, we're talking to previous chiefs, we're finding out from the administrative assistant how things have been done prior to, and those requests that came out of the general fund, that was the reason being prior to the past. So we were told to resort back and to make that attempt to try that. So that's not something we're, again, like I said, we're not creating or trying to try something new, but we're going into the existing budget and how things before, maybe in the past, but where we had some things that were not sufficiently funded.
I think we all agree here. We want to give it to you. We just want to try to figure out where to get it from.
Understand.
And
Chief, so if we were to appropriate the requested amount, would your overall budget be more than the budget in the previous year?
Yes. It's already more than the previous year.
Previous amendment budget 7.1.
Yes, it would be.
The budget they have now before this additional matches our revenue that's coming in.
That's all on account to that you have the contractual obligation of these are raise years for the police department.
what was that again?
Do you,
Yeah, but I didn't hear what you said.
well, when we made the
Yes,
cuts,
you're in contractual
they gave us
obligation
the
of raises.
proposed budget,
And it
but
was
we had to
within our
make the
guidelines.
3 million was over our revenue. So that's why these cuts had to be made, and we had to make them across the board to meet our revenue.
I think we got a little bit more in general than we were figuring some out of Lloyd, whatever they call it.
More revenue than you thought you were going to get.
We're going to receive more revenue this year from Lloyd. We did receive more revenue in 2015 than we anticipated, and we didn't expend all of our 2015 budget, which helped the operating balance, right.
I think to try to expedite this along, we have, I believe we figured up, when you add the police and the fire's request together, it was almost $400,000, close to that. So you asked, do we have money to do this? Assuming that we've got the extra money, as Mr. Owen said, then yes. It's just, do we do it this way, or do we give the pot of money and then say, this is it, and the pot of money again might be more than what they're asking for, but then it has them to appropriate, it has them to manage it. It's whatever, it's just a philosophy.
And I'm okay with the two line item budget, or if they give it to us the way they have. But when you talk about, at least from my perspective, when you're talking about a police department and a fire department, there is no that's it. I mean, because we don't know what's going to happen.
Oh, I agree.
So, I mean,
Well, that's why part of the proposal that Nathan and I discussed was whatever that increase is, we withhold for emergent things you're talking about, emergencies that would naturally come upon, that would still be left. So we wouldn't just say, oh, well, we have 400,000 more than we thought, here's all 400,000. No, I mean, there would be a retention of a significant amount of those funds to cover emergencies. And I don't know how we would be specific enough to maybe wrap our mind around what those were, but that was part of the discussion.
So were you all talking about a pot of money just for police and fire, or are you talking about a pot of money for all departments?
Both. A pot of money for Lloyd, which is police and fire, but then a pot of money after we go back and look at what's available in the general fund. And we're going to have to go into the reserves anyway, but how much are we comfortable with going into the reserves? We have to, that falls on us. And because once we put it up there, then it's going to fall on us. We're the ones that are going to get the blame for it, for overspending. So then the pot of money that comes out of the general fund, that can be determined. Part of this will go to police and fire if they need it. It's the priorities of because they have on this, they have some coming out of general, they have some coming out of Lloyd, and so that'll be up to the administration to manage, to lay it out there. So it's two pots in answer to the question.
I would say that in the future, especially when it comes around to budget time for next year, if we decide that we're going to spend $26 million out of the general fund for 2017, and we say, here's $27 million, bring us a proposal that adds up to $27 million, that's fine. But it still has to be broken down in this fashion to show where everything's going. You can't just put a line in for $6 million for the police department to operate on.
And I would figure you would want to see exactly where everything is going.
Exactly.
Heather's going to need that.
We still would.
Even if you come up with a global dollar amount, there's still going to have to be an ordinance of additional appropriation taken down by a line item because Heather's department cannot shift the money around into those line items.
Right.
Obviously, it would be the administration to determine what those line items are, the dollar amount, but there still need to be an ordinance at some point.
And I'm fine with that, but it still has to come to us in this fashion. It can't come as a pot of money, so to say.
Sure, but it's just, what
But we
we're
can-
saying is just as being presented to the mayor as that, and then it comes back to us as that.
Yeah, okay. Just making sure we're on the same page.
Well, so what do we do about this?
So if
We
we're
table
deciding
it?
on how we want to do it, are we talking about for 2017? You know, or are we, I mean, at this point,
I'm prepared to make a motion,
we're,
but do you,
well, I'm just saying, like, if we're deciding between two different ways to do this, then are we talking about for 2017, or are we, because we've already gone through the budget process and for this year?
Just a concern that I have is, we know that our general fund is going to have pressure on it, and we're going to be going into reserves. And because of that, and because we don't know all the departments that are going to come back before us, then it's almost like we need to know what all the requests are going to be, and so we know who to say, and it's hard to know who to say yes to and who to say no to. And that's why I think when we were talking, we didn't want to be into that business. We said no. I think regarding the Parks Authority, we said that's an executive function. Well, I think some of this is an executive function. We say here's the money we have. You spend it as you tell us you need, versus when we say no, we're going to give you that amount for a new fax machine. Yeah, we'll approve that, but we won't approve it for another department for a phone. It's just philosophy. I don't know. It's just
I guess my question is, are we prepared to know what that number on that bucket is going to be right now?
For 2016.
For 2016, you know, are we
We don't
prepared to
even
look
know-
at the entire year?
Know
you
the
know,
numbers,
we don't
what we have for many of this, because we don't have certain, we
Right,
still don't have a real number yet anyway.
right.
Yeah, because we don't have the circuit breaker.
I was thinking, Callie, that I'd looked at some numbers and I could be off, but I was thinking that we had approximately $300,000 in the general fund available, and then in Lloyd, we thought we had 300, and then I learned now it was 5. So it's changing figures, but and then as Scott mentioned earlier, we want to try to hold back maybe 100,000 in Lloyd just for emergencies, and then turn the rest loose. So I was thinking it was close to 300,000, but that's a question we'd have to get with.
well, I think that calculation is that the revenues that came in are 300,000 more than the surplus that we had, if I'm saying that correctly.
And 300,000 more than our budget.
I
what
don't
we
have
budgeted,
I
maybe.
don't have a 12-line statement with me, but
Yeah.
I think 5 million carried over from last year.
It was more closer, in the general fund, it was closer to $2.5 million that came out of the 2015 budget and carried over to add to the already operating balance of about 2.4.
Okay. So you're giving what you call a revenue neutral statement when you say 300,000?
Yes.
Okay, and the reserve can also be called a surplus? It's not the rainy day fund?
No,
Right.
Right.
I think we
So,
brought
we're dealing with
450,000
some
more
words
in
here.
last year than what we anticipated.
Well, and then when we're talking about public safety, when we talk about we're already at our revenue, but the key point is they brought it up, I think it was Steve brought it up with all that development, then we're still faced with additional police and fire, because you know we're getting ready to do a plan, and I know they presented plans to us for additional police and fire, so where's that money going to come from? So there is a lot to consider.
It's going to get worse every year.
Because we have to make...
But for this year, we have the money. Well, yes, but
Just depends on how much more we'll need throughout the year.
right. It could become an issue.
The way I'm looking at it as, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I'm looking at it as if I have my revenue at home, the way we do our personal finances, if I have this revenue and I have this expense, I can't spend more than what, and just because I got money in the bank don't mean I got to spend that because I'm going to go out and buy that $50,000 car because you know what, I got money in the savings. That mentality is going to be, all right, this year we have it. Next year, well, what's going to happen that third and fourth year when there is none? When you have a budget that is already been inflated outside of our revenues, and that's where you're going to get the catch-22. It's, yes, we have it now, yes, I agree with
I want a
that.
Cadillac back and forth.
Well, let's be clear. This isn't about going out and buying $50,000 cars. This is about when you call 911, do you want the police to show up? And this is about the fire that was in my district where a garage caught on fire, and the police are there for 6 or 7 hours. I mean, the police and fire are there for 6 or 7 hours. These are things that they have to have so the fire doesn't spread. The neighbor's house was 3 feet from the house that was on fire. These are essential services that we need. I trust them. They say they need it. And these aren't things that are luxuries, and if they are, then maybe those are the things that we can say, well, we shouldn't pay for. But this isn't a mentality that, oh, it's there, so let's spend it. I've looked at the numbers, and so I get what you're talking about, but we're not talking about depleting
And we also
some of the
spent
surplus
both chiefs spent a considerable amount of time going through each one of these requests and explaining exactly why they were asking for all these in a workshop, which I think, you know, if we had questions or were concerned at that point.
That's why we wanted to be informative and also to put those numbers out there.
I think the plan we were giving you more than this. It's just you got to manage the rest of it throughout the year. I mean, we were giving them this.
Yeah, I don't know what the pushback is.
Yeah, it wasn't like we weren't taking it away. We were giving you more. You just got, I mean, we weren't micromanaging it.
And all I was asking for is to take everything into factor when we're talking about that. Because we're just in March. We still have the whole year to go through.
We're at the point where I think we need to have a motion one way or another, either to approve this on a certain reading, or to table this to come back, or to have some other way forward. So I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. President?
Sir.
I move that we pass 2016 OR, is it 20?
Yes.
On the first reading.
Motion, is there a second?
I'll second it on the first reading.
There's a motion and a second to pass 2016 OR 20 on the first. Anything further? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. 2016 OR 21.
Thank you.
Same story, different department.
You want to have the same conversation again?
Mr. President?
Sir?
Can I make a motion?
Yes, whatever you'd like to do.
Would you like me to say anything at all?
Would you have anything?
Here's Chief.
Would you like to
Just
add
here in case
anything?
there's a question or concern. I have listened to the whole thing, and I think it's great. I appreciate the council. I think the theory of what Nathan proposed and Steve as far as putting a mark on the number and letting the administration divvy up the priority, I think is a good idea. And I know that your Lloyd money, you guys seem to have a good handle on it as well as what's coming in and what you projected for. I know about that only because of the 911 board that I sit on. But we did have two separate requests, as the police did. A general budget request of $46,500 and then $120,000 for Lloyd. So, yeah, here's the, any questions? I guess it's probably the same.
Let's
So
ask
I'll
you
just
this,
have-
Chief. Would you not want to manage your own budget?
No, absolutely.
Just once a year?
Absolutely.
Okay. That's all I need to know.
And Lisa,
Councilperson Gill, your point is you're right. I have not depleted any of my general line items yet. Those are all projected to be depleted in those areas that I've asked. But as far as right now, I think that is a little bit of a different ballgame than the Lowit money. Like Nathan, that could maybe be something that all department heads have to get to you guys by May 1st. But I think those are things we're not running out of yet. At least I can speak on behalf of my budget. Out of general budget items that were cut, of course, I don't run out till October, November, December. But with the Lowit money, that is a little different because of the new hires that we got coming in is what some of that money is going to be used for. So if you guys do decide to go that way, maybe you don't have to go both on the same timeline in regards to general budget that won't run out to the end of the year opposed to the Lowit items.
Well, since we're giving away, I'll make a motion that we pass 2016 OR 21 on the first reading.
Second?
I'll second.
Councilperson, why didn't you second?
I'll give it to Maples.
To who?
Maples.
Okay.
Motion and a second. Anything further? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Thank you.
16 OR 22 is a ordinance of additional appropriation based on changes in the salary ordinance. So Ms. Metcalf, we would need to reduce this appropriation by the amounts of those which were struck out of the salary ordinance
Yes.
prior. And that would be your,
I have the two in the fire department,
the fire department,
and then I had the safety specialist.
safety specialist, director of safety and risk management.
Could we do it this way? Could you do it by line or number so I can cross it off on here?
I have a suggestion, Mr. President.
Yes.
I mean,
Something we're going to have two meetings on?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can we pass on the first reading and then let her go through that and present it?
We can,
That's
either
fine.
way you want to do.
It's getting late.
Did you have a motion?
I did, thank you. I move that we pass 2016 OR 22 on the first reading.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Anything further? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Number 14, Park Authority appointments. We have 3 appointments to make. I know of at least 4 names that were discussed. If we could throw those out, I guess, and discuss those. I wanted to put forward Josh Kornberg, resident of the 1st District, programming experience with the Louisville Science Center and Volunteers of America. He's currently the development director, does fundraising for Ivy Tech in Sellersburg, and is an adjunct professor there. That would be my suggestion.
Well, and I'd like to put out, is this the way we're doing, we're all just kind of going to sing their praises and then we...
Just throw them out there.
Ralph Scales, who is currently on the Parks Advisory. He was athletic director at Jeffersonville High School for a long time, since I was a student and a teacher there, so at least probably 20 years. Deals with large budgets, knows parks inside and out already from his role in advisory. I think he would just be a great addition, exactly what we would want.
I'd like to throw out the name Paul Duckworth. I think most people know Paul. He's the president of Clark County Soccer Association. He's been to probably more Parks Authority meetings than most people who are on the council. He helps work with Paul Northam now as far as the turf field and all the soccer fields at the Worley Complex.
And Larry Jordan, I brought his name up, I believe, the last meeting. I just resubmit his name. Someone who's interested in being involved.
I guess somebody else wants to throw out a procedure, Mr. Lewis. Would we just...
I mean, you basically start with a motion to nominate, you start with a name, and then have action on it.
So all of us get the 3 that we're thinking of, and then vote when their name comes up.
Individually?
We
So do we vote?
There's one too many.
Do we vote, yes, do we vote one at a time, or do we vote on a slate of three?
Can I make a recommendation?
Yes.
Before we make a motion to approve the three,
Sure.
I think we ought to mention the name and just say who's for that name, because each of us gets 3 votes. Then we just go and we tally, and at the end, the top 3 win. And then we make the motion to approve those 3 names.
On one motion.
On one motion.
Would it be easier to say the person we're not selecting? As opposed to trying to tally up 3?
I think what you're saying, though, is like a vote. You have to, explain that again, I didn't understand.
At a large catch.
For example, if we said all, that it's not a vote, but Josh Kornberg, who would support him?
If I did.
Do we- Well, let's tug on your right ear.
I think you're that way still like doing.
Well, then I don't have a suggestion.
I've got a suggestion. Is there, I know we threw out 4 names, some of them I don't. Does anybody have any, nobody wants to be negative, but is there anything that needs to be discussed about any of these to make them better than the other person? I heard all the good stuff, but is there something that we're...
Well, said they're probably all 4 good.
I don't know. We're voting on 4 people for 3 spots.
He's your opponent.
No.
Would there be a conflict with Paul being the president of Clark County Soccer, considering the relationship that we have?
There's that contract.
Oh.
Facilities, yeah.
I agree. In fact, I agree with that.
And I'm going to,
that's a
Then
good
we have
point.
a
I'll withdraw Paul Duckworth's name.
There we go.
Then I make a motion that, for Ralph Scales, Josh Kornberg, and Larry Jordan to be our appointments to the Parks Authority.
Second.
Motion and a second. Anything further? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes.
That resolves itself,
Are there any department heads that dare come to the mic?
Yeah.
Are there any department heads that would like to speak for a department head report? Is there any public comment?
Oh, my gosh, you'll be up there already.
Missed it.
Saturday, March the 12th, that's this coming Saturday, we're having a public service, public safety job fair at the Ken Ellis Building. This is something that Chief Kavanaugh, Chief McVoy, and my administration had come up with. We thought we needed to make some more awareness of the city job opportunities are coming open in the police and fire departments. We're doing that at the Ken Ellis to try to target that community. And but that is from 9 to noon. We appreciate the Parks Department giving us the building for that time. But if anybody wanted to stop by, we're going to have firefighters there. We're going to be explaining the careers, explaining both what is included in being hired as a firefighter or police officer, the restrictions, some of the dates that are coming up, and the merit system that we operate under. So just to make you guys aware of that. If you haven't heard, you may have seen it on Facebook.
Is this something that you would just want actually prospective candidates that are adults or like seniors in high school? Would that be something they would benefit from?
Well, when we certainly will explain it to anyone, but we were kind of targeting those that would be eligible candidates.
Okay.
An eligible candidate is from 21 to 35. They can be 35, you can't be 36. So,
thank you, Chief.
Chief,
yes,
I
sir.
want to thank you for having that in my district. Coming out to the people when there are job opportunities, it's very much appreciated.
I think that we can do a better job of putting that awareness out there. There is one other thing that I can explain to you guys in a short. The fire department, in order to apply for a fire department job, you have to have the CPAT, which is a candidate physical agility test. That's a guideline set forth by the Merit Commission. That test comes at a cost of about $150. So we are going to try to get some community sponsors for anyone that is an eligible candidate through our screening on Saturday that still wants to apply. We don't want finances to get in the way of someone being able to pursue a firefighter career. So we want to be able to offer some financial assistance. We're not going to pay for the whole test, but I want to try to get some sponsorship in the community to help a scholarship or sponsorship for someone that wants to take the CPAT but just simply can't afford it. So if you see that also or you hear about that, that's what's happening there.
Thank you, Chief.
All right, thanks.
We have a public comment. John Walling, is he still here? Trish Rain? No. Trey Henton? No?
I bet you they wanted to speak during the agenda items and we didn't.
That's what it looks like. Council comments, Mr. White?
No comment.
Mr. Z?
I have a couple comments. You know, when you look at when we did during the budget process, when it was recognized that what was suggested was going to be more than what was projected in revenues, we asked for the department heads, the mayor, to go ahead and reduce the budget to meet the constraints of the future revenues. And they didn't come back with anything. And that's why we had to do what we did with the best information we had in August, September. So that's why there's some discrepancy. I just want to give a little history and background. It's not like we were cutting departments out, you know, whole for whatever reason. It was because we had to make cuts somewhere, try to make it revenue neutral. We looked at prior years, and we did ask department heads, and we didn't get a lot of information back.
I wasn't asked, I'm sorry, but I wasn't asked, Councilman, just to make that clear.
It was at public meetings that this request. And then also, I also like to add, and this is not directed at any one department or anything. And I didn't mean to direct it at any one department, and I'm not. But when we look at department heads, it's not like, and I guess I lean towards Mr. Webb there. It's like when you ask a question, wouldn't you like to be the one who manages your budget and your financial manage your budget? And that's exactly right. I totally agree with that. And I'm in the business world, and I look at it that way as well. Our department heads, you know, they're not promoted based on their financial skills. They're appointed based on their political clout. And I don't mean to insult anybody. I'm just saying. And so when you look at the budget process and what really happens in government is that each department sometimes department heads aren't the best managers of employees or money. And they also look at a silo. They look at their department, what you need, what you want, what you'd like, and see money. So when they come, they go from one department. We as the fiscal body needs to look at holistically from the whole city. And that's where I think we kind of got to go back and forth on how to best manage the city. Without micromanaging, you definitely have to have the executive and the department heads manage their department. But I just want to throw out, I guess, some years of perspective on what I've seen in government in general. And then another point I want to mention, and this is totally different, going back to the Parks Authority. You know, we go, and I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but I just want to make one comment, and that, you know, we went ahead and went with the Parks Authority that was appointed board by the mayor. We didn't even make our appointments. The board that was controlled by the mayor went ahead and met, and I think their number one concern and number one charge is to make decisions for the best of the Parks Department. And their decision, one of the decisions was to give away an asset worth probably $400,000 to $500,000 away from parks for nothing in return. And that just strikes me as not making a decision in their best interest, but rather making a decision based on other factors, most likely political appointments. So, that's all.
Ms. Yan?
I just wanted to say from a redevelopment standpoint, some of the highlights of our meeting. I'm excited for the 10th Street widening to move forward into the next stage. It's been a long time coming. And also excited for the tax abatement with Cutter property. There are a lot of great things happening in Jeffersonville, a lot more to come, and I just wanted to remind the council of those from this evening. So,
Mr. Maples?
Two things. One, I'm guessing the police department installed a red and blue flashing light on Hamburg Pike. It's working. I see it working every day. It's much appreciated. And secondly, if anybody has any questions about why I voted no on the animal ordinance, I'd be happy to speak to them. It's nothing to do with the animals. I just feel like due process is absolutely necessary for a citizen. I always vote that way.
Ms. Gill?
I attended the fire department where they're starting this new program, which I'm very excited about, and I commend them for doing so. The first Saturday of every month, they open up the firehouses, and what's the times, Eric?
10 to noon.
10 to noon, and I went by fire headquarters just to, I wanted to thank, I don't know if you all are aware, but the Red Cross is actually partnered with the fire department, and they were on hand. There was quite a number of them, and that they're going to go out. All they do is they come to the open house, they give their address, and the Red Cross will go out and properly install their smoke detectors, and then opening up the firehouse, and each Saturday there's going to be a different instructional thing that they've got, and it was very well attended, And I do applaud the fire department for doing that. I really like what I saw, and I'm going to make it around to all of them, and I encourage council to just to see and engage and just, it never gets old when you see those little ones going in there and the wow effect when they see a fire truck. No offense, police, but when I walked out in that bay and I was particularly very proud to see and glad to see, I guess you'd say, that the battalion chief vehicle is in and it's equipped and key turned ready. We now have that, well, that, as you all aware, was referred to as Car 5. And that one is always the first one out, and it's one of the hardest used. And when I heard that they would get in at times and turn that key and it didn't start, that was unacceptable to me. So I was really glad to see that in the station. Now to get back to sitting in a seat's not easy. And when you have the departments come in, you try to get your words. We're exhausted. We had the executive session. If I misspoke or gave anything, I apologize. I did not want to imply by any means that you're going to go out and ask for a cut. I was just trying to put it in a perspective for the taxpayers of where I'm coming from, because when you're sitting here as the fiscal body, when you have the revenues coming in for that year, and then you know what we've got coming with the growth, with the circuit breakers, the mandates, we're facing going into the possible, we don't know the outcome of the EPA mandate, which that is huge. That is extremely huge for us, and we've got to sit here and take in all these requests and weigh all of this, and it's very difficult. In March, for me particularly, and I did not mean any offense, but to try to make these decisions to go outside of our revenue before we got circuit breakers and all, it's very hard for me to sit here and do. I would love to, and I support them, and I would give up, but not just police and fire, which everybody knows I'm a strong supporter of, but we have all the other departments as well, and that all falls on our shoulders. And when the revenues are gone, or if there's a problem, it's not going to be anybody's responsibility, nobody else's lap it's going to fall on except us. So if we are sitting here approving appropriations, whether they're warranted or not, when that money, that there's problems with revenue, we got to answer to the public because we're representing the taxpayers. We're overseeing their tax dollars. And I do that don't take that lightly. I take that responsibility. Being fiscal responsible to me, they all know, everyone's sitting in this seat, I pay a lot of attention to our budget. I'm firm, but I'm fair, but I pay a lot of attention to that. So I don't want you all to take anything that I said out of context, or I just hope you understand where I'm coming from. It's not an easy task for us to sit up here and do this. So I hope you all know where I was coming from and didn't want to offend you or anything in any statements I made. Did I do that, Kenny? Did you understand where I was?
I was daydreaming.
Well, you know what? Well, when I'm sitting here trying to, when I am sitting here trying to relay that, because that's what's going through my mind, and then when you have Councilperson White say, "Well, was a fire in my district," I'm like, "Whoa, no, that's not what I meant." That's all I have. I'm done.
I don't have anything.
Mr. Webb?
I'll keep it to 3 minutes. How about that? I just want to let you know, the fire and the police, we all support you. You all got a tough job. I think what Lisa was trying to explain is we just got to find the appropriate funds to pay for it. Because as you all expand, the general fund is not. Because these new developments, we're not getting the tax revenue off that to support you guys. And if you would have came out of that meeting we had like at 5:30, you would really would want to know cut back more. But we support you guys. I just want to elaborate on what Lisa stated. But we're just trying to find the funds to more or less pay for everything. You know, I know I like to want to buy stuff at my work, but if I go through when I go through floor plan renewals, and if I don't have everything balanced out, I'm not going to get any line of credit. So, but we all 100% support you. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Sammy?
I echo what Steve just said, but two other points. One is, in the future, I'm really concerned about our general fund and some things that are happening that'll be coming down the pike. And in the future, the idea about the pot of money that I've talked about, internally, I want to internalize that And in my mind, I'm going to say I feel comfortable with spending down X amount of our general fund. And in the future, when or if I vote no on an additional appropriation, it's because we've crossed that threshold for the most part. And I won't take the time to explain it, but that's why I don't want to spend our reserves, not year after year, because then we're going to be hurting, and I don't want to leave the city with that. And in my last comment, I kind of echo a little bit about the Parks Authority for what Ed said. I was very disappointed that our Parks Authority did not even wait to get our appointees on that board to make such a huge decision. In my mind, there's no rush to do it at the very next meeting when we didn't even get our voices on the Parks Authority. It wouldn't have made a difference, but still, it's symbolic. It just says volumes. So that was very disappointing to me, and just wanted to voice that. That's all I have, Matt.
Good. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We're adjourned.